All right. So thank you everybody for jumping on this webinar on virtual hiring strategy. We have a great panel today that is going to be here. We're going to introduce them in a second. If everybody wants to go to speaker mode so that they can see the person that is actually speaking. Just quick, kind of what we're going to do is I'm going to do a little intro of myself, the organization, intro of each one of the panelists as well. And then we're going to get into some questions about virtual hiring strategies. If you have any questions, you can answer in the chat. John is working the chat, and then we'll go over some live questions at the end as well. So start out, my name is Steve Edwards. I'm the CEO of Premier Virtual. Small town Wisconsin guy, went to the Army, spent 4 years in the 82nd Airborne Division, jumping out of airplanes, then 3 years in the Florida National Guard. Went to college in Florida, got into the job fair industry, put on in-person job fairs for almost 9 years. Saw a huge change in the market a couple of years ago, found out about virtual career fairs, fell in love with virtual career fairs, said it was going to change the industry. As we were coming along, everybody knows what happened back in March with COVID. COVID has really changed everybody's outlook on what virtual career fairs did. So where we had before, a lot of people didn't see a lot of the benefits in there. And now with what COVID has happened to it, a lot of people are seeing what the benefits are. So what we want to do is put a little panel together of some tech associations that have been really going above and beyond to try to get people back to work within their regions. So I'm going to leave it to them. We're going to start off with Nikki. Can you introduce yourself? Give us, who you are, what organization you're with, and quick little 1 to 2 minutes about yourself.
Sure. So thanks again for having me today. I was glad that you asked. My name is Nikki Cabus. I'm the VP of Development for Palm Beach Tech. We actually just decided recently that we are going to become a regional organization across South Florida. But we are a tech nonprofit, like I said, stated here in South Florida. And we're basically, our whole goal and mission is to build the region into a tech hub. So we work with a lot of the headquartered companies that are here or have offices here. A lot of the tech talent are universities, coding schools, and basically just offering any resources to help connect the community, upskill the community, and making sure that we can, not only attract people here to the region, but keep people here.
Perfect. Thank you, Nikki. Jill over in Tampa.
Thank you, Steve, for inviting me today. And hi, everybody. I'm Jill St. Thomas. I'm the executive director of an organization called Tampa Bay Tech. Very similar to what Nikki is doing down in South Florida. We have been the tech council for the Tampa Bay area this is our 20th year. So we were hoping to have a great big blowout party and get a lot of people together. We're still hoping we'll be able to do that by the end of the year. We will see. Our mission is really simple. We are building what we call a radically connected technology hub here in Tampa Bay. We have over 100 member companies, the largest of which is Tech Data. Our smallest member is probably a 25-person development shop. And so we really work with all sort of sizes in between. Similar to what Nikki described, we have a great ecosystem here with our local university partners. And very much share that same vision around making sure that we're attracting, developing, and retaining great talent here in the Tampa Bay area.
All right. Thank you, Jill. Steve Cherry in Tennessee.
I'm Steve Cherry, Vice President of Corporate Outreach for the Greater Nashville Technology Council. Again, very similar to the others. We do similar work, just slightly different, I believe. My main focus since the COVID shutdown has been to help workers get back to work. We were, as companies were shutting down or cutting back and the layoffs started, we were just bombarded with both employees that were laid off and companies that were either hiring or laying off, asking us if we could help get the two together. So that's what I've been doing the past couple of months, and that's what led me to Premier.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Steve. So obviously, as everybody's listening, we had Steve, Jill, and Nikki all come from the Tech Association world. And that was by design. We're going to be doing a monthly webinar like this with a different strategy, with different types of organizations every month. It's going to be something a little bit different. So this is our first one that we are doing. So, we chose people that come from the tech side. So couple, questions that we're going to go over. We'll start with Steve on this one. Before COVID happened, did your association do any kind of hiring events or job boards or anything that had to do with employment?
Before COVID, we had a job board, which we've had for years, is my understanding. I'm fairly new to the organization, but we had a job board that's used by our members to advertise jobs, and candidates, of course, can go in and apply for the jobs. It's kind of lightly used, but it did exist. Other than that, we as an organization, other than doing some professional development events, we had no hiring events. We did do a lot of connecting people that might be new to our area or had just lost a job to the companies that were looking, but that was just a manual process where we would get people together to let them discuss with each other. But as far as formal events, no, we had not had any in-person job fairs ever in the history of the NTC. And we resume writing, webinars, things like that, we have had some of, but actual hiring events, no. This was all new to us as of about end of March.
Okay, all right. Jill, what about you?
Similar to Steve, we had and still have a job board. That's one of our member benefits that members can post, their open positions for free on our website. And then we sort of looked at it in a couple ways. We got away from the in-person career fairs about 4 years ago. The last one that we did, while successful, what we found challenging was it's a huge investment, and it was really difficult to collect the metrics of, did it matter? Did we actually create any impact or make any matches in terms of talent and opportunities? So that's kind of the behind the scenes of why we pivoted a little bit. And really what we did was invested in a couple of different things. One was our partnerships with the universities. So we have 10 university partners here in the Tampa Bay area that we have reciprocal advisory board seats with them, so that we could really keep those lines of communication open very directly between academia and what our industry folks, at the C-level were needing in terms of talent. And then the second area that we really put a lot of emphasis was on building up our meetup community and understanding that that's where all the talent and the technologists are. So in the last probably 3 years, we went from kind of a very disorganized group of different meetups and user groups in the Tampa Bay area to, under our co-op, about 82 groups. So we were able to really feel like we had a better connection point with the talent in terms of, being able to say, hey, for those of you looking for opportunity, here are some places to go.
Thank you. Nikki, you guys had because I know you, right? We're right here. So I know you guys had a unique, kind of a unique of what you were doing kind of before COVID hit. So if you want to kind of give a little bit of that information as well, what you were doing before that, and then after COVID.
Sure. So I'll apologize ahead of time too, because they just started cutting down a tree in our backyard. So hopefully you guys can't hear that. But so prior to COVID-19, we did have a talent and education committee that was led by a couple of our board members on our board of directors that had been working with a lot of the local colleges and universities. But we also did have a jobs listing, like a job boards on our website. Kind of to Steve's point too, though, it was very minimally used. We had some people go there, we had a resume distributor, which was kind of sending resumes out to people that were viewing the jobs, but it definitely wasn't as robust as it is right now. And as far as like any in-person events or anything, we hadn't done anything. I mean, as you know, Steve, we actually, before COVID-19 hit, we actually had planned our first, career expo, which was going to have a virtual aspect with Premier Virtual, and then also an in-person aspect. And And thankfully, we had worked out the virtual side of it because of course, when COVID-19 hit, then we just got rid of the in-person part. But that was actually going to be our first one. So
we had kind of a, where Steve, they never did it. Jill stopped about 4 years ago, and Nikki was going to do their first one. So it's kind of a wide range of, where you were all at. So what made, and you, all three of you here, and that's, why we asked you three to participate, is you were very early adopters, right? You kind of went in, and Nikki, I know yours was kind of, planned, but you went right in. And, Steve, you guys jumped in. Jill, you guys kind of came in. What made you really jump into it so quickly? Where some people have kind of waited, and some people haven't made decisions yet. Some people are kind of waiting. What made you jump in so quickly to be able to adapt to virtual? Jill, we'll let you go first on this one.
I'll take this one, sure. So, to be perfectly candid, I let Nikki jump in before me so that she could be our guinea pig in the virtual career expo. It's great because all of the tech council folks, we all talk every day. We're all very connected. And that's actually one of the great benefits of our community is we do steal from each other. We do wait and see how other people's events go and then either replicate or decide to pause. But for us, it was really, I think, when you are an organization that relies and frankly thrives on connecting with your members and connecting with the community, and we all of a sudden couldn't do that. We really wanted to continue, immediately in March, getting to virtual as quickly as we could. Then on top of that, we started to see, especially through some of our career source partners, these unemployment numbers in Tampa Bay just continue to go up and up and up every single day. And so our leadership team sort of paused and said, we have a role to play in this problem right now. So really, after speaking to Nikki and hearing how successful the event was down in Palm Beach, and then getting connected with you and your team, Steve, I think, we were able to do it quickly too. So to your point, even if you were kind of on the fence about doing it, it's once you make the decision to go, it's a matter of weeks, a few weeks before you can actually launch your event, which was pretty great.
Nikki, what about you?
Yeah, so for us, we had actually been talking about probably for 6 months about doing some sort of talent or career expo. Our problem was, since we already knew that we were talking about expanding, we're like, well, if we do something in person, where are we going to do it? Because South Florida is so large and everybody's so split up that if we do it in Palm Beach County, the Miami people won't go. If we do it in Miami, vice versa. So we were trying to figure out the best location and how to do it. And of course, you being one of our members, we knew that we had you there as a resource, and we're like, there has to be some way that we could do this with you. So that was always kind of the plan. But of course, this was prior to COVID-19. So, we actually had planned it out a few months, prior to do it in April. We internally even had the discussion once, COVID-19 hit and everybody started, getting in lockdown and all this craziness happening in March. We're like, well, we've got next month our career expo. What are we going to do? And we just, we talked and said, should we cancel this? Because at that time, that was when, all the schools were canceling their career expos, their internship expos, all the job fairs were closing, everything. Even all the tech conferences were being pushed back. And so we were like, well, we don't know what we should do. And, I don't know. I think you guys did a great job and, helped us kind of transition that, because being the guinea pig, I didn't really have anybody to talk to. We didn't have another organization to ask, how did this go? Were there any issues? Did people like it? We had no idea. But we figured, we might as well try it. Everybody right now is going to be losing jobs. People are going to be hurting. It's the best thing that we can do to support our community. And we didn't know whether it was going to be super small or super big. Thankfully it was super big and it was great, but we had no idea. And actually we actually have another one coming up July 15th. And we had only planned on doing something, at least twice a year. But now, of course, with everything going on, people are like, oh, can you do it again next month? And I'm like, I don't know about next month. That's a lot to put together, but maybe next quarter. So yeah, I mean, it definitely created a lot of excitement for us here, you know, locally. So we're very thankful to have you guys as a resource.
Oh, thank you. So I'm going to kind of spin off that, Steve. I want to ask you that next, but because of what you said, you had a lot of your clients are coming back to you. So are you seeing more now where they're saying kind of where you said they're asking to do it quicker? Are you seeing a lot more that your clients are coming to you, or your members, I should say, are coming to you saying, you know, now we're ready to start hiring again?
Yeah, a lot of them that weren't able to do it the first time around because they were, you know, having hiring freezes or whatever it may be, you know, even the openings that they had, they were closing them. And now that I think we're slowly starting to get in the stages of getting back to work, obviously we're not fully there yet, but there are a lot of companies that are coming back and saying, hey, you know, we're going to slowly start filling these. It may not be at, you know, the pace that they wanted originally, but they are opening, you know, back some of their opportunities. So we have been able to, for this one, get a lot of companies that we didn't around the first time.
Great. Steve, what about you? You know, you guys had never done one, and you jumped in very quickly as well.
Yeah, we jumped in toward the end of March. We got phone calls from some of our larger members that were telling us 1st of April, they're laying off a few hundred people each in the tech world. So we knew there was about to be a problem. So we quickly took existing tools that we had and just created a very simple download your resume to us, tell us what kind of job you want, and we'll share it with our member feature. So we did that. That was okay. It was something, you know, took us about half a day to build. It was necessary, but it wasn't very efficient. It wasn't something that could allow people to talk back and forth to each other. We obviously had no jobs listed in that particular database. It was just, you give us your resume and we will share it with all of our members. So we did that initially, but after a few weeks, we realized we really need to do something that, number one, wasn't a lot of effort for us to upkeep. We were spending a lot of time manually moving stuff around that way, and something that would be easier for the hiring companies to search through to find people. So we started looking, and that's what got us to you guys eventually. After we had found you guys, I actually, and I don't think I told her this, but I actually logged on to Nikki's event as a candidate to observe it. So that was my first exposure to your software in use. I had participated in someone else's job fair a couple of years ago that quite frankly didn't go that well because the hiring companies people weren't trained very well. They used it as oh yeah, you look like a good candidate, go to our website and apply. So we wanted to do something different. So it got us to you guys. We worked with the companies that were going to be participating in ours to try to get them to make it interactive. And it appears from the feedback we've gotten from those companies and candidates that they did that. They actually used the product instead of using it as a way just to gather resumes.
Perfect. Sounds good. What do you think, Steve, I'm going to start with you on this one. What do you think some pros and some cons are with virtual career fairs?
I will start with one of the very few cons that I heard. I think it's only because of the times. I think people are a little bit more, some are a little more desperate than they might be in normal times. But many people on the candidate side told us that they were expecting to log on to the event, have a full interview at the time with hiring managers, and get a job offer from it. I think you and I have already talked. We're going to communicate that better on our next event, which is late August. It's not that type of event. I guess it can be, but what we used it for and what our hiring companies were doing, it was their recruiters. They were doing screenings. So they were doing, much like they might do sitting on the phone all day long, talking to people. They were just doing it with your application. And some people were wanting to get hired right away. So that was really one of the cons. And the other one, the only one that I thought was valid, and it was planning on our part actually, was everybody logged on at one time. So we had, within the first 30 minutes of the show opening, we had 300 and something people logging in and wanting to talk right away. So we're doing some stuff that has nothing to do with the software. That it was just the way it was. So we're doing some things for our next event. We're hoping to spread that out a little bit and get people to log on at different times. Also, we're planning to have more hiring partners the next event, so that should help also. I don't think I've said this yet, but we planned this event in three and a half weeks from contract signing to actual live. So we didn't have quite the number of hiring partners that we had hoped for, but we went ahead and did the event anyway because there was a need for it. So we had all the candidates were bombarding a small number of hiring companies at the same time. So we're going to have that spread out next time. As far as pros, a lot. I mean, if you're looking at it from the hiring company side, they're saving thousands of dollars from going to in-person events, especially if they were planning to go to an out-of-town hiring event that gets very expensive. One company told me that they easily spend $10,000 going to events per event. So they obviously didn't do that for our event. So that's a plus. Also the record keeping, as far as the candidates registered and attending or going to your booths, we know right away that they've done that, so they don't have to keep any manual logs or track people themselves. It's all right there. So obviously that's some of the pros. There's probably, there's a lot of others, but I'll let Jill and Nikki talk about theirs. I'm sure they overlap a lot.
Okay. Jill, what are some of your pros and cons about a virtual event?
Sure. I would say, not a ton of cons as far as our experience. The one thing, and Steve, we were really candid with your team about it in our debrief, is it's a sort of a two-step process for the job seekers. They have to kind of go in and register and then go back in and build their profile. And for whatever reason, that seemed cumbersome. At least that was some of the feedback that we got. Now, I don't know that there's a way around that necessarily, but it's no different than sitting down and updating your LinkedIn and your resume just in a normal circumstance. But perhaps because there's just sort of this current of depression happening right now for all of us, maybe it sort of feels a little bit more difficult to have to do a two-step process than a one-step process at the moment. In terms of the pros, I would say I'll start with a piece of feedback that we got from our employers, which is really hard to beat. That we sent out a survey after the event, which was really beneficial. It helped us get a lot of great responses. Was that 100% of our employers felt that they met quality candidates. So you can't beat that. And I do think in terms of a virtual event versus an in-person event, because your time's a little more limited, because you're a little more targeted in terms of who's going to be applying and taking the time to do it, the caliber of who participated seemed to be really high. We did a couple other things that I think were really made our event successful. One was we asked Steve to kick off the day for us as the CEO of Premier Virtual and welcome everybody and sort of walk everybody through what is this day going to look like for you? How is the best way to kind of navigate a virtual fair? And it was great. I mean, Steve is, he's full of energy. He gets more excited about career fairs than most. And again, not everybody that's there is feeling like confident at the top of their game. So it was a great way to kind of kick off the day feeling really positive. And then the day before the webinar, or 2 days before the webinar, we had worked with a partner here locally who is a business coach who very generously offered to host a webinar for all of our job seekers, getting them prepped for the day. In other words, here's what your resume should look like. It should be more of a catch-all resume versus a specific type of position resume. Here's what you could do to update your LinkedIn. You could talk about going to this event. Here's what you should be thinking about in terms of questions to ask. And again, it was just kind of really putting our focus on these people that are looking for work and getting them in the right mindset to sort of dive into this new experience and feel like they were as prepared as they could be.
Very good. Now, Joe, and I said this to you and Karen when we had our debrief, 9 years of putting on hiring events. and from Texas, Arizona, all the way up the East Coast. I have never in my life seen 100% happy on the client. So when you told me that, that's phenomenal. And what that comes down to, right? It comes down to the marketing, because there's two parts to every job fair when it comes down, right? It's the marketing side and then the reminder side. And that's where when you guys came in and you had almost an 82% login ratio, and to have 100% positive rating from the company is phenomenal, right? So that just shows what you're doing out there. And I would probably, after this, if I'm other people that are, kind of listening to this, is to kind of find out what they did as well. And again, some of the other ones, maybe I haven't heard that from some of the other ones as well, but whatever you're doing, I would bottle that up and sell that information, because it is, that's really good information. And then the start, when you asked me to do that webinar, and I would, Nikki, Steve, anybody else out there too, is that offer is now out there for everybody. So I think that kicked off, and you said it right, Jill, is it kicked off. I mean, what did we have? 60 some people, I think, that were on there that logged in first thing in the morning. And it started at 9:30, 30 minutes before the job fair even started. And all I did is went over best practices of a career fair. But it got them in there, and I think it started off the day. So now, we've changed something where any new client that comes in, when they want to put on an event, if that's something that we want to do, we'll start the day out with that, with that webinar. Now, Jill, you guys did something a little bit different as well. Is you had a morning shift and an afternoon shift. Okay. Now, Steve, with you kind of, you guys said everybody came in at 1, you're looking at doing everything. Jill, what did you see the difference between the morning and the afternoon? Did you really see any difference in that?
That's a great question. I don't know the answer to, frankly. We actually wanted to make sure that we did evening live recruiting hours as well for people that may have had, we've heard a lot of people say, I'm employed now, but they're keeping me through July, and then I've got to look for something else. So we're like, well, we have to have something after 5 o'clock for these people to visit and, interact. But I don't know, Steve, that's a great question. I don't think we actually asked any of that to get that data point.
I will, I'll look in and I'll send over to Lena and see if I can pull that data for you.
Yeah.
To see the login difference of the ratio, to see what was the evening. And the reason I asked that too is, when we used to do our events, in the in-person events, it was always in the evening, because it was that employed person looking for a better opportunity that was out there, right? They couldn't attend a daytime event. But we've noticed, and we've had some of our other clients that did the same shift. They did a morning and an evening. It was a big job fair client that was there. They cut out all of their evening shifts, no more. So their next 14 events that they have scheduled with us, they said no more evening events. They did not see, now granted they weren't as large, their events, but they did have something, that was a little bit different. And then Nikki, they did something even more unique. So Nikki, you want to kind of talk about what yours, because yours again was very unique from the original, when you were looking at doing a hybrid model of what you were going to do with your partners, to then obviously switching. But you did it very unique how you had it set up. And I think Steve might like hearing this, because maybe this is something that Steve was looking towards.
Sure. And the noise outside is okay, right? You guys can still hear me okay?
I can't hear it.
Okay, because I feel like it's getting louder. Okay.
No, we can't hear it.
So what we did is we kept the platform open to job seekers for 12 hours. So we did, I think, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And we actually had 3 separate, what we called live hours, which were, I believe, at 9, noon, and 6. So we're kind of those peak hours where typically people are, looking for jobs or going online. I actually am very curious also, Steve, just to see what our numbers are as far as login ratios. The only thing I kind of have to base it off of that is we were looking at how busy the chats were, and also the workshops that we held throughout the day. And all the workshops that we held, I think we had 4 that day. all had between 50 and 70 people in them at some point. So it seemed to be pretty busy throughout the day. But we did get some feedback. We sent a follow-up survey as well. A lot of the companies were very happy. The job seekers were very happy. So I think the only thing we could have done, on our side was better was, I think, us as an organization could have communicated better about the live hours, because a lot of people, thought the whole thing was going to be live. So I think that's the only thing for us that we needed to communicate better, because they would go in, to the chat expecting for somebody to be there on the other end. But we were selling it more, obviously, because it was open for 12 hours, that we know somebody on the hiring end side may not want to be there for a company sitting there 12 hours. So at least those 3 hours that they would be available. But yeah, it worked out pretty well for us. I actually might steal your idea, Jill, and have to use Steve, because I like that kind of intro idea. I think that will kind of get rid of a lot of people's questions, twos, and fears of using the platform and kind of getting in there. Yeah, I actually really like that idea. But yeah, so we kind of, we took what we were going to do in person and basically just did it virtual.
Yeah, and I think, how you kind of mentioned, right, the fears and everything, and we take feedback, right, from everybody that we have, and what we've seen from a lot of different organizations, and from organizations that never thought about doing a hiring event before, to some that were doing virtual with other platforms that switch over to ours. So we take a lot of the feedback. But what we saw out there a lot too was some training issues. None of the three on this phone did this, but I will say there was organizations where we would get called from companies 3 minutes before the event that they never logged in. So, or a candidate never logged in. So we actually are redesigning our entire landing page, how that works. So we're putting, it's all your branding in there, a registration, and then videos. So it's going to be, we're creating a video that's, what is a virtual career fair and some best practices. And then also you can create a video. So you could put a video on there too about your organization that's going to be right on the landing page. So now when those candidates, especially, right, we're like you use the word fear. A lot of them had never been to a virtual career fair. They didn't understand that. So we go back to what Steve said, right? These people were expecting it to come right in and, do a full live interview right there. So we put that, how we're changing to do the videos right on the front page. We're also putting training videos right in the profiles. So now a company, because what we saw a lot, and I saw this a lot in the in-person world too, but you're seeing it a lot on the virtual. So, a recruiter comes in and they're the one that they set up the event. They have everything. They're in. They've watched the training. They maybe attended the webinar. The day of the event, they can't make it. So now another recruiter has to come in. They didn't get forwarded any training videos. They didn't know what was going on. So then they log in and they're completely lost. So we're going to put all of the training right in there, because now they don't have to call you and say, I don't understand anything, right? So just little things that we have because of what we've seen with candidates out there, right? They don't understand, not everybody understands it. So,
and I think that's awesome, Steve, because that's, as we talked, we had some of those issues. So I think that's awesome that you guys are putting it right in there, because we definitely had companies that watched the videos. They went through all the questions. They did everything with me. And then the day of, they had to have a new person. And then, of course, we had a million calls the day of.
Right.
So, yeah.
And we're trying to limit, right, as a whole, you want to limit your phone calls the day of the event. And it's mainly when they haven't been there before, or if somebody doesn't log in. I had that one 3 minutes before the event and said, I forgot my password. And it was a company. And I said, okay, I'm like, well, is this the first time you've logged in? And it's like, yeah, this is going to be my first time. Well, how can you be prepared for that? So we want to try to make everybody be as prepared as possible. What do you see, Nikki, take career fairs out of this, for the future of virtual events? Where do you think virtual is going? And what do you think you guys as an organization can do with virtual in the future?
I personally love, as negative as a whole that the coronavirus situation is, I think definitely the silver lining is that it is pulling us together through doing events like this, because I think we were I mean, even as a tech organization, I was telling somebody yesterday, I'm kind of, you know, you feel dumb for like not thinking about how much stuff we could have been doing virtually because we are in tech. But now, I mean, everybody's connected virtually. And I feel like just the floodgates have opened with all the different ideas and things that we can do. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of things that we can do that we were doing in person, which are, you know, a struggle sometimes to do in person, that doing virtually is just so much easier. I mean, even, you know, as an example, like some of our in-person, like our physical roundtables or tech talks, some of our events, you know, holding them, you know, at a happy hour after work. I mean, typically, unless people live or work within 15, 20 minutes of that, you know, geographic location, they typically can't make it because of after work traffic or family or whatever it may be. But I mean, doing something that's remote and virtual, they can do that from home. They can do it on their phones, sitting in their living rooms, you know? And so I think we can also pull people from so many different areas. So simultaneously, you know, educating different people that would have never been able to attend before. So I don't know, I'm definitely liking that aspect, that we can pull together a lot more people and reach a lot more people through virtual than we can just in person.
Okay. What about you, Steve? Where do you see virtual going?
Much the same way. One thing that we've noticed virtual is we're having participation in some of our events from people that are way outside of our area that would have never been able to drive. I mean, even from, well, our job fair, for instance, had people from California, applicants from California on there. So that has been one big thing, is it's expanded our reach. I think a hybrid approach is probably what's going to happen. We've had several of our members reach out to us very recently, thanking us for the virtual events, and they're happy with them, but they miss networking in person. So, you know, you can do that through Zoom and other methods, but it gets a little cumbersome and loud, and you can't have private conversations as well, even though it is possible. But people like being in front of folks. So I think that's something that we will continue when we're able to do it successfully again, and mix in virtual with it. So we will continue, we'll do both. The hybrid approach, we have a couple of big events that have always been in person. Our IT Summit and Analytics Summit are both coming up this fall, and they've both switched to hybrid events. So again, whereas people may not have ever been able to travel to us from somewhere else, they'll be able to attend our virtual side of that event and allow us to learn about the Nashville community.
Great. What about you, Jeff?
I think, you know, from the kind of to piggyback on both Steve and Nikki, is this idea that we can reach a much broader audience. You know, even the partnerships that we've been kind of forming with Palm Beach Tech, and we've done a couple of events together, and we're looking to do more. You know, Florida's a big, small state, and what's relevant in Tampa Bay's market, guess where else it's relevant? Everywhere else. Like, we're all talking about the same things. And so having broader exposure to talent, broader exposure to thought leadership and other companies, it has definitely, you know, become a focus in terms of our event strategy moving forward. The other thing that I think has been interesting for our team is the idea that when you're in the event business, which is, you know, unfortunately what a lot of tech councils feel, even though it's a lot bigger than that, sort of from a missions perspective, but we have tended to use the metric of how many attendees we had be our gold medal. And what we have learned from some of our events since March is that we've had roundtables with 6 or 8 people that have been just the perfect 6 and 8 people, and the quality of that event is phenomenal. So getting out of this mindset of the bigger equals better, for me has been huge, because if we put on an event and 12 people show up and all 12 send in their survey and go, that was phenomenal, when are you doing it again? We've hit success with that event. It's a different mindset.
Absolutely. What kind of virtual events have you guys done besides like a virtual networking or virtual career fairs? Any other type of virtual events, even outside of the business side? Anything?
We've done through our organization, you know, we have several peer groups And we have sort of a partner organization called RNG, our Recruiters Networking Group, which actually was one of our co-hosts of the career fair. You met them, Steve. And they host probably one event a month just for our corporate recruiters. And then we've been doing, for our CEO group, we have an executive leadership council of CIOs, CTOs. We have an emerging leaders group that has an event coming up. So really just trying to, again, balance giving people what they want in terms of content, and also not adding to the Zoom fatigue and the every call's a webinar call, where we all have to shower every day and be like, looking our best. Like, there's days we don't want to do that. Just call me on the phone like we used to. So we've been trying to really balance, kind of playing what's the role that we can be providing in terms of rich content, and then not on the other side, not inundating and giving somebody something else to do for an hour when they really don't have that time to give.
Gotcha. Great. Yeah. Now I gotta comb my hair every day now. Zoom calls all day. When they talk about Zoom fatigue, I don't know about you guys. I mean, I'm on Zoom pretty much from 8 a.m. till 6 o'clock most days. So,
yeah.
There's some days I'm like, all right, I just want to close the laptop. So I'm sure that's there. Steve, what other kind of virtual events have you done so far?
Well, we've done almost exactly the ones Jill has, so I won't bring those up. But another thing we had that was that may be unique, I don't really know, but we have an apprentice program at NTC. That apprentice program involves a 12-week classroom training component before the apprentices start working at a hiring partner. And that classroom component was supposed to start on March 16th. That was the first day that our offices were closed. And so was the college that was going to be hosting the training. So obviously we couldn't do that. So we quickly had to adjust that into a virtual training. So that's, and it worked. 10 apprentices graduate from the program tomorrow to be able to move on to their hiring partners now. But that's just one event. We have found that delivering some of that education content is possibly easier than in person sometimes. So we now have summer camps going for kids at this very moment that are all virtual. We have one small one is still in person, but the others we've made virtual. And I'm sorry, it's not in person. They had to come in for some meetings and then it went virtual. But those are things we've added that we weren't doing before. And then we took our existing events, much like what Jill described, and converted those to virtual.
Okay, great. Nikki, anything different that you guys have done, or any other fun virtual things?
Yeah, we were able to successfully pretty much move almost all our physical in-person events to virtual. And we added a couple of new ones. So we have our tech talks that were our happy hour events on Mondays that we're, just basically brought on through Zoom. And we were also doing like educational technical workshops, which we also do now virtual. The only, I think, main difference with all this is because sometimes you do feel like you have that Zoom fatigue, and we have so much stuff going on that we almost wonder, like, are we doing too much? Like, should we limit some of this? So what we've done is with some of our events, like we used to have in-person, like full day technical boot camps, but now we're like thinking like, okay, I don't think anybody's going to want to sit in a technical workshop for 8 hours. It's so much easier to do that in person because you've got breaks and you've got people you're talking to, next to, and they would, break for lunch and get to walk around and whatever, which now you can't really do. So we've just changed those to be intro workshops where they were an hour and a half long, kind of an intro too, so that if, somebody wants to get more education afterwards, we'll just connect them with whoever the instructor was and just have them go directly to that company. That's probably the major thing that's changed that we haven't been able to do. But as far as like new things, we actually took some of the things that were kind of on the back burner for us that we have wanted to do virtually and just never had any time to do. And now this was the perfect time, like our podcasts. We've been wanting to do podcasts forever. And so now we actually, we record them, live through Zoom, and then we actually send them to one of our members to do, production and send them back and then get them, pushed out through the podcast platforms. But yeah, that's actually been going pretty well for us. I actually saw somebody from Career Services put a question in the chat about the breakout rooms during virtual career fairs. We haven't done that, but we actually use the breakout rooms in Zoom for some of our workshops. I don't think we've done it enough, but I do think it's awesome. I think that we should utilize that more. So I think some of the different, I guess, like features or things that the different virtual platforms offer, we're still trying to figure out. But we've successfully gotten a lot of our stuff, I'd say the majority of it, all virtual.
Yeah, I think, virtual, it's kind of, really been a hot topic with different things. Since this whole thing has started, I've done a virtual happy hour with some friends. I've done a virtual wine tasting with my wife and a few other couples. And it's just something that's different that you don't do, right? You're getting people together in a world that you couldn't. This weekend, we have a couple people that are flying into Florida that I was in the military with. And some of the people that couldn't fly in or didn't want to, right, with everything's going on, we're going to do a virtual aspect of it too. We're getting people together. So there's so much that, the efficiency of virtual. Last question.
One thing, Steve, I'd like to add to that real quick if I can. Just to remind every one of us that has an opportunity to work virtual to actually, take advantage of it when you can. It's supposed to be, working virtual is supposed to be a plus. Work during your time when it's necessary, move about, go do things. As you remember, I had a call with you from the mountains one day. So, take advantage of it. It's been a horrible time. We need to do what we can to relax during this time. So
100%. I think Facebook knows that we were talking when you were up in the Tennessee mountains and I said I wanted to get a cabin up there because now all over my Facebook I see houses for sale in Tennessee in the mountains, right? They're listening to us. They know.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about it. That was when started showing, but I won't get into what I think about Facebook listening to us.
Yeah, so, and Steve, if I was going to add too, I think that, Steve, you're very right. It's just that I think we should take advantage of this, time the best that we can, because I think a lot of it, going back to the word fear, is like, it's something that people are just not used to. We've never done it before. People have a bunch of questions in the air about how to do this. But I think if we just kind of step outside of our comfort zone a little bit, that people will actually realize how awesome virtual things are, because it's so much easier to bring people together. We even had, as you were talking, Steve, you just reminded me, we even had a panel discussion all about just the stresses of being in a virtual environment and being home with your kids and trying to teach with them and, working from home, and you can't connect with your, staff members as easily. And so we had a whole thing about just like health and wellness and how to take care of yourself, working remote and being virtual. And we actually did a fitness class virtually online for a bunch of our members. So just things like that, kind of thinking outside the box, it was actually really enjoyable.
Perfect. All right. I got a couple questions in the chat that I want to go over. One of my questions is actually working from home. And Steve, you kind of touched on that point on, working from home and getting things done. All right, go over some of these. Brady Pill asks, as we shift from in-person to virtual career fairs on campus this fall, what recommendations do you have for us to best reach and engage students? Does anybody on the panel want to take that?
Sure, I can. Something that we've been doing here is we have been connecting with a lot more of the colleges, universities, even our local coding schools, and inviting the students to anything from our career expos. Right now, we're actually working with the Palm Beach County School District and the Broward County School District to put on some virtual webinars for teachers and students over the summer. It's about a month and a half long, but it's everything from best practices from working remote to gamification in education, to helping the students get engaged, to just different things like, how to gain soft skills, or, the importance of actually, taking up volunteer opportunities, internships, whatever. So we've been actually working a lot with both, I'd say middle school, high school, and college level students. But I think we have, like, to use an example, like one of our members, FPL, they've actually been really engaging and brought everything virtual for their internship program, which I was actually really proud of them for doing, because a lot of our members, and I'm assuming a lot of companies across the country, completely got rid of them or just kind of, stopped them for a while. But we definitely have some members that have, been able to bring their internships completely, virtual as well.
Perfect. Anybody else on that?
Certainly just connecting with at the universities and colleges, the career services folks, they often have sort of the best inroads with all the students, figuring out where they are on social. We've had great luck with sort of a handful of students that we know who are those real go-getters who are on LinkedIn, and getting them to then share our stuff on LinkedIn to their cybersecurity club or their girls in tech club. So kind of leveraging the students that that are already really active and engaged to spread the word out as well. And then I think thinking outside the box, to Nikki's point, to these kind of code schools, even some of the nonprofits like Year Up, the new skilling kind of programs that are popping up all over the place, where you have an opportunity, frankly, to reach some different types of talent that maybe you wouldn't at a typical four-year college or university.
Absolutely. And, one thing I'll add to that too is, if you are the career center trying to get your students engaged and everything, it comes down, and I said it earlier, the marketing and the reminder aspect of this. You got to be in front of your students to make sure that they know that the event is, right? I don't care if it's an in-person event or if it's a virtual event, right? It's a date, time, and a location. And if you make your students aware that, hey, at this date and this time, you need to be here, right? Again, either online or virtual, right? It's just like a class. You need to be there at that time. And if you do that same thing, your students are going to be engaged, right? If you're getting them some videos, some, best practices, and, every week send them something out there. Could be just a quick little best practice email or a quick little video that they can have where they understand it. They don't want to watch a 10 to 15 minute training video. They want to watch 30 to 90 seconds is what they want to be able to see. So they know, okay, here's what it is, right? I log in, I see this, I go from here.
And
so
anything you can do via text, we found.
Anything. Yeah. I'm a huge fan of text reminders, right? Because most people open their, they're going to open their text, much more. So you can text them from a college standpoint of view, I would send a text.
Yeah, we actually have, we haven't done it with Palm Beach Tech, but one of our partners, I thought it was a cool idea. They actually work with one of the local high schools. And what they're doing is, because they haven't been able to do their internships like normal, so they actually came up with kind of a Meet Your Mentor program. So what they're doing is they're connecting their students, setting up even just short 20-minute, 30-minute, one-on-one mentoring sessions with some of their leadership of their corporate members, just to basically allow the students to actually talk to somebody that may be in a role that they're looking to be in one day, ask them questions, kind of whatever it may be. But I think, again, virtually makes that so much easier. I mean, I even offered myself to do that, because if I had to go and drive all around town, to do that, I may not have the time to do that. But for me to just, sit in my home and set aside another 20 minutes to talk to some students isn't a big deal for me. So I don't know. I think, that's another way that virtual can help, and how we can, help our students when there's not as much opportunities for them going on right now.
Perfect. And then Kristen, I saw your message. What is the best way to find organizations such as one Jill, Steve, and Nikki work with? And Jill put it in there. It's techna.org. If you look at those, you can find all of those organizations. So, well, that puts us right about 3 o'clock. Does anybody have any last questions? Or Nikki, Steve, Jill, any last things that you guys want to go over or talk about?
I guess for me, my only parting words would be just I keep talking about the fear factor. Is just that was huge internally for us as an organization. We had a lot of discussions about, oh my God, what are we going to do? Our business, what's going to happen? And I think just if you have an idea, sit down, think about it, bounce off your ideas from somebody else. And sometimes, we have, her, Steve, Monica, and our team, she's the idea girl, and sometimes her ideas are crazy. And I always joke with her, I have to take her ideas from here to here and make them doable. But you know what? She throws these things out that are like completely insane. And I'm like, you know what? It's a little crazy, but if we tone it down, this might actually be awesome. So I think just sometimes just not, you know, being fearful to kind of think outside the box and actually try things. You know what? If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. People will never remember it 6 months from now.
That's true, but they'll remember that you tried. They'll remember that you stepped up and you put on an event that, you know, was for the community. And
Exactly.
at the end of the day, when we get back to whatever normal is, there's going to be goodwill among all of the brands and organizations that did that versus the ones that were tentative, I think, and quiet.
I agree.
100%. I think it helps all of you guys, you know, being the early adapters. So, well, we appreciate, you know, Steve, Jill, Nikki, thank you for jumping on today. Everybody out there too for listening. We look forward to, you know, any other questions you guys can let us know. And we look forward to working with all you and talking to you all soon. Thank you everybody for joining, and you guys have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks. Bye-bye.